everyone, and welcome to another episode of the iWorkinSport live interview. This is the show where we talk to accomplished sport business professionals who come here to share their knowledge, experience, tips, and advice in order to help you succeed in your career. If you're just meeting, my name is João Frigerio. I'm the founder of iWorkinSport, and I want to sincerely thank you for being here with us today. So if you're coming back, you know the drill. Let me know in the comments where you're watching from. If this is your first time, also please do the same. Let me know where you're watching from, but also write in the comments that you're new here too, that you're coming for the first time. Are you watching the replay? Leave us a message too. We check all of them. That would be great. If you don't know iWorkinSport, we're a platform to help you accelerate your career in sport. One of the ways we do that is by organizing events such as the iWorkinSport Job Fair that happened a few weeks ago here in Lausanne, the latest edition. Our website also aggregates several job boards for you. You can find a comprehensive list of sports management courses on the platform, as well as a list of career coaches, for instance. So check out iWorkinSport.com. Here it is. Also, if you would like to connect with like-minded professionals and have access to some exclusive content like free career coaching sessions, or if you'd like to watch the presentations from the latest job fair, I invite you to join our community. And that one is WeWorkInSport.com. Right? So because it's a community, we call that We Work in Sport. Obviously, if you know us, if you like the content, hit that like button. If you're watching on YouTube, that's really helpful. You know, subscribe, hit that the bell sign, all that. You know the drill. But well, anyway, that's enough about us. Let me introduce you to my guests. Right. Today, I have the pleasure to welcome to the show Brett Ross, Vice President of Global Sports and Entertainment, Marketing and Partnerships at the Coca-Cola Company. Proud South African, Brett has a very impressive career. He's been at Coke for many years, working in different roles. There was a 2-year stint at Google as well before he came back or went back to his current position at the Coca-Cola Company. We'll definitely cover all that in our conversation. He's been working with global partners, including FIFA, the IOC, the Special Olympics, Formula One, McLaren Racing, Riot Games, and many others. Just a few years ago, he was also named in the prestigious At Age 40 Under 40 annual list. So he has accomplished a lot in his career, has many stories and lessons to share. So without further ado, let me invite Brad to join me. Where is he? Well, right after this. Brad, how are you? Welcome.
Bom dia, João. Great to be
here.
Bom dia. And thank you for that amazing introduction.
Bom dia. Good to see you. Let me just fix something here. Wait. Sorry. Can you see me? Yeah, I had a notice here with the stream. Anyway, I'm not sure if we're going to LinkedIn. If you're watching us on LinkedIn, let me know if you can still hear us. I had a notice here that might not be working so well. But anyway, Brad, thank you so much for making the time, for being here with us today. As I mentioned to you before, this is a show about career in sport. That's what iWorkinSport is about. So I think that the best way for us to start a conversation is for you to maybe let us know a bit more about your career, maybe what you studied and how you started working in sport.
Great. And hi to all the viewers from everywhere. It's great to see you all and to be part of this conversation. So as Hao said in the introduction, I am proudly South African, born and raised, and grew up in Mzansi. My career in sport really started, I think, at an inflection point for me when I was still very young. The country had just come out of apartheid, and we celebrated the Rugby World Cup in South Africa, which we won. And the moment that we lifted that trophy, you saw what sport did to the country, a country that needed some unity and after a very difficult period. And so seeing what sport did to the country at the time gave me an early indication of the power and the uplift of sport. So I knew that at some point, this is where I wanted to be. I was a competitive sportsman and enjoyed playing sports too. After school, I went to university, and I went to the University of Johannesburg. I studied at BCom Marketing and then did my BCom honors in Marketing and Strategic Management. And then after that, I did my MCom with the Business Management and Marketing specialization. Through that time of studying, I ran my own swimming squad. So I was a swimming coach, and I
All right.
And that was fun. I mean, right, like swimming's a passion of mine. I was competitive as a swimmer, and being able to give back and run a squad was amazing. And then it got interesting here when I started my master's degree. There was evening courses, so I had a lot more time during the day. And at that point, I wasn't quite yet ready to go into the business world. And I landed up actually going to a high school where I was the sports coordinator. So, learning how to organize events and fixtures, coaching the teams and being embedded in that was super cool. Once I finished my master's, though, as I was getting to the end of my master's, I decided it was time to then jump into the corporate world and start my career in marketing. And so I worked initially on the agency side for a couple of agencies in South Africa, on the research side, on the sports and music side. And then I joined Coca-Cola in 2007. And I joined on the brand team, looking after brand Coke in the country and having a focus on all the key passion points. Let's say it was right place, right time, because we hosted the 2010 FIFA World Cup in South Africa. Yeah. And that was another massive moment. For those of you that were able to be in South Africa, or those that are from South Africa, you saw again what the power of sport was to unite and bring the country together. And that was absolutely incredible. Following on from that, then I had the opportunity after 2010. We worked a lot with the global team at the time and had the chance to work very closely with our global team. And then had the chance to move to Atlanta to our head office. So I took the opportunity, moved to Atlanta, and spent a couple of years.
When was that? So when did you go to Atlanta?
2011. So really like right after the
World Cup.
Yeah, and I came over to Atlanta and had the opportunity to continue in the sports and entertainment team, building then the global programs that we do. I then, after a couple of years in Atlanta in the sports and entertainment team, I went back to Africa. I went to Nigeria, where I was looking after the marketing and commercial function for the West Africa business unit. So that overseeing 33 countries across the continent at the time, which was just an incredible experience. Following that, as you mentioned, I had a short stint at Google. I worked on the global business team with Google. And then,
was that in the US?
Back in the US. And then this role, which was always the role that even since I started at Coke was like, wow, this would be a dream job one day, came available, and Coke gave me a call and said, look, this role's coming available. Would you like to come back and lead the sports and entertainment side of the business? And so it was a no-brainer because it's passionate about the company, passionate about the role itself, passionate about the people that I get to work with. We have some amazing people that work in the space, both inside Coke and with our partners. So it was a no-brainer for me. And it's been an amazing, 2.5, almost 3-year journey back at Coke now in this role.
Yeah, I can imagine. I'd like to know a bit more actually what your job is like. Just before you tell me, there's some people that are already starting to say hi to you specifically. So Federico in Mexico, Emeka in Johannesburg watching live, and there's someone that's I think knows you, Lazy Ben. Says Brett Ross, the legend. So thanks, and for everybody else that is watching, if you wanna leave a comment. And by the way, if this is your first time here, this is quite interactive, so you're welcome as well to leave questions, and we'll try to get to them as well. And that's Ryan also from Italy saying hi. But Brett, what's your job like then? I know that sometimes it's very difficult to describe if a regular day, but if there is such a thing, can you paint us a picture of what it's like?
Yeah, it's a great question, Kiao, and I think the beauty of this job is that there is no regular day. Firstly, I think this industry moves so fast, and you have to keep up. There is so much happening in the sports and entertainment space that at no time, I think, are you just copy pasting the day before. There's so much that you're trying to look at. I think when I look at it more from an internal perspective, we're looking at playing both the long game and the short game simultaneously, right? On the one hand, we're talking about setting up global sports events in the future host countries, Paris Olympics, USA, Mexico, Canada, 2026, LA 2028, Milan Cortina 2026. That's long-range planning that you have to be getting ahead of, and we've got a team that really focuses on starting to prepare those live sports events. And then at the same time, you're working in the day-to-day. We're launching Coke Studio, we're launching new collisions and new songs all the time, and we're trying to optimize those campaigns and get them out the door. So you have this long-term and short-term that's all colliding and happening at the same time, which is what I think makes it really, really exciting. I think the other thing is that sports and entertainment is not a 9 to 5 Monday to Friday job. I mean, is if anyone thinks that's what it is, you're wrong. Sports and entertainment is, it's often you're working weekends, you're working out of sync on certain things, you're working in times when people are chilling. It's one of the things that you need to be aware is if you're going to go into this job, it doesn't necessarily take normal working hours. So the regular day, I don't think there is anything as a regular day in the world of sports and entertainment marketing, but it's fun. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, for sure. And tell us a bit more about then the structure of the team working in sponsorships and partnerships at Coke. As you said, the role that you have now, you had your eye in it. It was like a dream job for you. And I told you before, I think that's a dream job for a lot of people that are working in that area. But tell us a bit more about the structure of the team. I think some people may think, oh, Coca-Cola, it's a huge company. Probably they have 100 people working on the brand in that office, taking care of all accounts. But maybe it's not like that at all. So how is it?
Yeah, I think the first thing that I always say to folks is let's level set why we do what we do. When you think about sports or entertainment marketing and you think about why we do it, ultimately we run in a business, and we've decided that we want to be playing in the space to drive the business, to drive the growth of our brands, and to connect with consumers through things that they care about. That is ultimately why we do what we do. Which means that we work very closely with a multitude of teams. We work in what we call a networked organization. So it's not only about the sports and entertainment team, but it's about a whole village of folks that come together to make these things happen. So once we've established that we want to be, operating in the space for a specific brand with a specific passion point, we then start to talk about what that structure looks like and how that comes to life. We operate, as I said, as a network model. The Coca-Cola Company has 9 operating units around the world and 1 corporate or global team, which I'm part of. What we have done through this networked organization is try to mirror what we have on the global side to what's going on in the operating units to hopefully provide more efficiencies, to build synergies, and to really try and build the networked organization in the way that makes sense. So in the global team, the structure is, we look across the business in the following ways. We have a team that looks after the sports partnerships and operations side of the business. Those are the folks that lead the day-to-day conversations with key rights holders: FIFA, UEFA, IOC, Special Olympics, McLaren, Riot, some of the folks you mentioned. That's the team that does that. They also work closely to get the host countries ready for the next big event. So, right now as we speak, some of my team are in Australia and New Zealand, working really closely with the Australia and New Zealand team for the FIFA Women's World Cup, which is kicking off in a couple of days. So they're building the operations plan, they're working with the rights holders, and they're enabling us to extract the most value that we can from what we do. We have a team that focuses then on the sports marketing side. So the sports marketing side is really the team that are focused on predominantly, based on the sports sponsorships or partnerships that we have, how do we go to market with them? How do we use them to drive the brands? And what are we trying to do in this space to leverage this as much as possible? So we have a team that's fully focused on driving the sports marketing campaigns, using the IP that we've bought, using some of the values and the rights that we've associated ourselves with from these rights holders, and bringing it to life through campaigns across many brands. So that's another vertical in the team. We have an entertainment vertical that looks at gaming and music and influencers and new platforms in terms of where this industry is evolving and emerging to. You don't need to look very far to see how gaming continues to grow and will continue to grow in the future. So we have someone that really is playing point and is an expert in that space. And it's the same.
And I imagine that those are intersecting more and more. That's the entertainment branch and the sports one.
Absolutely. You see the intersection of passion points happening more and more. And I think it's the 1 + 1 = 3 outcome that you're looking for when you start to see how to play them together. That said, and we'll talk about this a little later, I guess, is you really do need experts in this space to be working and managing some of these quite complex and specialist areas. So that's how we set that up. And then we also have our strategy team that really look at analyzing the industry and analyzing the landscape, making sure that where our money is going and where we put in our money from an investment point of view is in the right places with the right partners through the right duration of contracts, and helping us make sure that we optimize that. Now, that team, in essence, is replicated across the 9 operating units. Some have bigger teams in the 9 operating units, some have smaller teams, but that almost gives you a blueprint in terms of how we think about it and how diligent we are in making sure that we, one, use sports and entertainment to drive the business, not the other way around, and that we have the right experts and the right teams in place to not only execute these opportunities, but to think through it strategically and build a long-term plan for that.
Right. And for those watching and who dream to have a similar type of job or work in that area, what does it take to someone to come and work with partnerships or sponsorship at Coke?
So what I would answer that first, João, is before we even look at the functional teams at Coke, I think you have to look at the behavioral side of things. I think it's the hows are just important, if not more important than the whats. So you always got to start with the person themselves, and do they align and do their values align with what we as a company look to do, right? So when we think about some of the leadership behaviors we look at, it's about being able to set the agenda, being a role model, and to help people be their best selves. I think those are table stakes in terms of the type of folks we want at the company. And then we look at our growth behaviors, which is all about agility, being curious, being empowered, being inclusive. I think that for me is the hows that we look at first. So first and foremost, it's the person before the competency or the skill set. Once that's been established, then we look at the role itself and see the competencies that we need. And I'd say there's 3 routes in terms of working in the space, in the sports and entertainment space within Coke. One is coming from the outside. So you're coming in from the outside, but as an expert in your space. We've hired people into the team from FIFA, from the IOC, from UEFA, from Universal Music Group, from our agency partners, that have come in that know their space so well. And I think that's what gives them a competitive advantage. So that's one set of folks that we look to bring in is really looking at the industry expertise that know how to operate in this space. Another space is, of course, through the Coke folks that are already in the system that want to be part of this. Like I started with Coke on the brand side. I was a brand manager first. I built my understanding of how the company worked, what our brand stood for, and continue to work my way towards what this passion area was for me. And so we have a lot of folks that have come in, not via sports or entertainment, but in a more classically marketing trained route, and then have moved their way in through the system. And then we always look at feeder programs, right? Whether it's internships or things like that, where, you know, we try and open the doors to young folks to come in and get an opportunity to see what we do, and to hopefully want to come back and work for the company in the long term. So I'd say those are probably the three routes in to working in the space.
Right. And in addition to, you know, the technical capabilities to do it and the knowledge that they bring to do the job, are there any specific skills that you normally look for whenever you're hiring? I don't know if it has to be communicative or, I don't know, proactive, or I don't know. Are a few things that you always look for in a candidate whenever you're hiring?
Yeah, you know, for me personally, I always look for substance over form. So I want to understand if there's a chemistry there, because sport is a team sport. And you know, for me, what's super important is the dynamic and the way that the team is set up. So I always look for folks that I know are going to be collaborative, that are going to be able to play well together, that understand that the name on the front of the jersey is more important than the name on the back of the jersey. Those are some of the fundamentals that I look at when bringing folks in. And then when you get into the technical space, is just, and you can see very quickly where people really know their game. They really understand the industry, the players, the business side of the sport or the entertainment side, and you very quickly pick up those that are going to add a ton of value in that regard. But you've got to balance it out. I think you first and foremost, substance over form, the right people on the bus, and then you look at, you know, the skill sets and the competency in this space particularly. Right.
Brad, for some reason, I'm not getting the comments from LinkedIn here, but I can see here on the other screen, there's there's a lot of people watching this, and there's many messages. So just to give you a sense of where people are watching from. So Julie Kessler in California, Antonella, doesn't say where, Claudia Alencar in Brazil, Safwane, hi Brad, nice to meet you. Altaf Gohar, hello Altaf in Pakistan. Brenda is here, just says on LinkedIn. There's Anuj in India. So yeah, one in Tunisia, Hisham. So there's people from all over. I told you. And this is actually one of the most interesting parts, I think, to me, how we get across the globe with this, you know, with a phone recording here and this new technology. We're going to talk about technology in a bit. But, excuse me, I'd like to ask you, Brad, and I'm actually going to share something first, because I had the privilege to be involved in one of the flagship, you know, Coca-Cola activations, which was the Coca-Cola Trophy Tour many years ago, when they did that for the Germany World Cup. So in Brazil and in Portugal. And I don't know if that was the first one or if they launched that even before in Korea. It might have been the first.
Yeah, 2006 for Germany was the first iteration.
So it was, I had the privilege to participate in that in some legs of it. Great initiative, and still going on, right? And now every competition now has its own trophy tour. Other brands are doing that as well. But for you, what was the most exciting project you worked on, and why?
So there were, I mean, it's hard to pick your favorite child when you're talking about this space, because there's a lot. We'll talk a little bit more about FIFA World Cup Trophy Tour, because that is absolutely up there. But I would say one of the projects that I worked on, which I absolutely loved, was something called My Coke Fest, which was an international music festival that we set up in South Africa. at that point in time, there weren't a ton of international bands traveling down south because of the way that the circuit was working in terms of international bands touring. And so Coca-Cola worked with our partner Big Concerts, which is part of Live Nation, to set up a huge festival where we were able to bring some of these international bands down to the country and give our consumers and our fans an opportunity to see them firsthand. This project was so multifaceted, right? It was tapping into the key passion point of music. It was putting on large-scale events. We did it across multiple cities in South Africa. Started with Massive Mix across Johannesburg and Pretoria, and moved to My Coke Fest, which included in Cape Town. And so bringing in international artists, linking it to the passion point of music, working closely with our bottling partners, with a lot of folks around the country in terms of pulling this together, was just amazing. And you can't beat live experiences. I really, truly believe that. I really believe that COVID showed us that even more, that experiences is what this is about. And I think if you as a brand, if you're a brand person out there or working for a company that's thinking about getting into the space, I think the importance of live experiences cannot be underestimated when you're thinking about your marketing mix and what that looks like. And so, My Coke Fest was an amazing experience, Joe. I mean, one of the things that I loved about it, just to give you an example, we ran something called the Super Fan, and this is pre the day of influencers. We ran a Super Fan promotion. We gave fans the opportunity to connect with their international bands that they loved the most. And one example.
Sorry, when was that?
So this was between 2008 and 2010. So it was really just before the social networks exploded and the role of influencers. Right. So this is probably in the build up to that. And one example I can give you, what we offered these super fans was they had the opportunity to ask the first question to the band. So we had a press conference, the bands all came in, and before the media even got to ask the question to the band super fan got to ask a question. And I'll never forget the one guy, Gareth, actually asked Chris Cornell if he could play at soundcheck with him that night. So the super fans had the opportunity to go to soundcheck, to see the band getting ready before the actual concert happened. And he said, yes, absolutely. So we went out to soundcheck, and the band that was soundchecking before Chris actually went over their time. So he never got the opportunity to play with him at soundcheck. But the next day, the day of the event, Chris Cornell reached out and said, why don't you bring Gareth into the green room? Let's play together before I go up on stage.
Awesome.
And he was blown away. He did that. He went into the green room, played with him, and then Chris Cornell said, well, come on stage with me and play on stage. And for me, that was amazing because these are the experiences that I think you open up when you give to consumers and when you're able to do it authentically and through a passion point. So it was a super cool program to work on.
Very, very nice. Very nice. And the most challenging one, was there one that you think you thought, oh, it's not going to happen, and then maybe it did?
1000% FIFA World Cup trophy tour by Coca-Cola. 1000%. So you gave the intro very nicely. We started this concept in 2006 during the German FIFA World Cup. We took it to 25 countries. We were figuring out how we went. 2010, South Africa FIFA World Cup, we really stepped it up. We took the trophy to all the countries across Africa. We brought in an aeroplane to help, get the logistics side done. And so we continue to build this. But I'd say the most challenging one for me, I was 2014. I was leading the FIFA World Cup trophy tour by Coca-Cola. And we decided to take it to 90 countries, 9-0. So, we were on the road for 8 months. Tons of complexity, as you can imagine. I had to learn so much about aviation and air travel, carnets, cabotage, all those things that you don't think you need to know, but you do.
And did you go to pretty much all of them, or?
I went to about 76 of the 90 countries. So it was an amazing opportunity, right? And you meet so many people. You see what this means to fans, to pure fans, when you bring the
It's a rock star life, a touring the world.
It certainly feels like that. The flip side of it is it's hard work. It's got a ton of things that you have to do. And so just the complexity of, being on the road for so long, all the moving pieces, 90 different countries, some cultures were super different to others. So you have to obviously take that into account, dealing with you were live. You were leaving one country to get to another country. The president of the next country was waiting to greet you, so you had to leave on time. So just so many moving pieces over an 8-month period. But I think that's where growth happens. When you step outside your comfort zone, that's where growth comes. And I think for me, that 2 years of planning the tour and then the 8 months of executing the tour, for me, were probably the most growth years in terms of pushing myself, my own boundaries, and pushing myself as a leader in terms of how we do this. Because again, it took an amazing team to make that happen.
Did you go to Portugal and Brazil with the Coca-Cola Trophy Tour as well?
Yeah, we've been to Portugal and Brazil. In fact, that one, we kicked it off because it was the Brazilian FIFA World Cup happening in Brazil. And we actually kicked that one off at Cristo Redentor. So we went up to the statue. We had ex-Brazilian winners. Fortunately, your country has a lot of ex-winners that were able to hold the trophy and kick us off. And we did new innovative things, right? We brought Globo, the broadcaster in Brazil, with us. They came with us on the full tour. So we had Globo with us on the tour, broadcasting the FIFA World Cup Trophy Tour by Coca-Cola back to Brazil, which was super cool and I think very innovative because it also built the hype and the expectation around the FIFA World Cup coming to the host country.
Yeah, sure. Listen, Brad, there are some questions here. Anuj Kale is asking a question. Julia Morris as well. Actually, I think she's just saying that loving this broadcast as someone looking to break into sports world from a career perspective. Thank you, Julia. And there's the question from Anuj. I'll ask you a bit later. We'll come back to the career side, but I wanted to take it more, talk a little bit more about sponsorship then. So as we change the way we consume sports and there's a new tech coming in play, whether it's AI or NFTs, some may be here to stay. Other, people may think it's a fad. How do you view the current state of sponsorship? And I mean, I think it's been changing a lot, as you said. Now you have even like micro personalities may attract sometimes, bigger brands or not. I don't know. There was a time that was about perimeter boards and associating yourselves with the big federations. Coke obviously still do that. But what else? What's changing? What's new in sponsorship?
Can I be a little provocative, Jao?
Yes.
I even think the word sponsorship, it's an old term.
Right.
I really do. I believe that it's more about partnership. And I say that because you've hit it on the head there. The evolution of what's going on in this industry it's moving fast. And you may sign a sponsorship contract today and get a certain number of rights for a certain amount of money that you're paying. And in 6 months or in a year, some of those might be antiquated, or there might be more opportunities to look at different things and to drive different things. And sometimes, you don't sign a contract for a year. Sometimes you do, but sometimes you sign a contract for 3 years or 5 years or 10 years. So depending on, the company, how you value the sponsorship or the partnership, those are all things that come into account. So for me, I think the word sponsorship itself is a finite game. Right. I think the word partnership makes it more infinite. And I think that's how I like to think about it, because, you are seeing, the evolution of technology in the space that's happening so quickly. You've mentioned NFTs. That wasn't even around 3 years ago, 2 years ago. It came in like an absolute storm. Offering rights in perpetuity is not something rights holders want to do either. So what's the middle ground there? The evolution of AI and how generative AI is starting to play such an incredibly important role here. Let's not forget about the ecosystem itself, right? Because I think so many athletes, players themselves are becoming brands themselves. And with that, expectations, where they fit into the ecosystem, how you partner with them, not just through pass-through rights from a federation or from a big organization, but directly with them too is an important factor. So it's a very fluid environment, I think, when I think about the old sponsorship into the new partnership model. And I think it's just something that you all have to make sure that you're very aware of and moving quickly. And if there are any
So
there's any rights holders on the call today, my humble request to our rights holder partners is to remain flexible and to understand our business too. I think that's very, very important. I think the work that we do where rights holders lean in, they try and understand what our business objectives are, why we're signing them as a partner, and how we want to drive the value for the business. The more they understand that, I feel the more empathy they have for us when we come to them with different requests based on how things are evolving and changing. And then you have to look at it as your brand itself. What stage is your brand in, right? If you're a new brand or a startup, maybe your objective is building awareness. And to build awareness, LED boards on the biggest broadcast in the world is amazing. But for brands that are well established, maybe that's not the primary reason to do this. Maybe you want to look at first-party data opportunities. Maybe you want to look at, targeting a certain tribe that the rights holder has connections with. And so it differs, by sport, by rights holder, and then on the company side, by brand and the objectives and the life cycle and the life stage that the brand is in.
Does Coke do much with celebrities or Instagram celebrities or YouTubers, that kind of thing? Is that something that's you're doing more and more, or not so much yet? That's not your strategy.
We absolutely are. The word influencers has been thrown around a lot. I'm the first to say that we're learning in this space. We by no means have all the answers. We by no means have that all figured out. But we also understand how important influencers are in terms of communicating with consumers, right? We know that people now trust people more than they trust brands. So you have to find the right connection with the right influencers to connect with the consumers that you're looking at. But it goes beyond just a influencer and more into the broader system of influence that comes with it, right? And the ecosystem that I mentioned earlier. If you're playing in football and you're playing in the space of football, it's not just about the 90 minutes on the pitch. Of course, that's what people are going to watch. That's what you're going to talk about. But the ecosystem around the 90 minutes is what's important. And I think as a brand, trying to understand where you want to play, how you want to play there, and where your right to win is, that all starts to become very interesting as you think about it more holistically.
And what's the usual process, Brad? Is that you and your team who identify opportunities? Or I imagine that you must get like thousands of people sending proposals to Coke to either sponsor their events or their whatever, or to partner with them. How does that work?
Yeah, it goes two ways, João. I think on the one hand, as I mentioned, for us, it's very important to link this to the business and to what we're trying to drive for the brands and the business. So, we work on our long range plan, we work on our annual business plan, and we're trying to understand, in essence, the basic, just boiling it down is we work in the space of passion points because we can connect with consumers through things that they care about. That's ultimately what we're trying to do. And if a partnership or a sponsorship is the best way to do it, then we will start to look into that space. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes you don't need a sponsorship or a partnership to do it. And that's why it's called the marketing mix, and you look at multiple variables throughout. But when it is decided that that's what we want to do, then we go through the process of either understanding what do we already have and what can we leverage and maximize that we've already got, or what do we need to go and create or buy from the industry that we're going to look at, or what do we build ourselves, right? There's the whole notion of paid assets versus owned assets, and maybe there's an opportunity to be looking at that. So that's what we do on our side from a more strategy perspective. We also stay very closely attuned to the industry, and I myself, and I know a lot of folks in my team, have very close connections who keep us posted on what's happening. People that are at the epicenter of culture, that know what's going on, and will bring various opportunities to us, understanding our business, but also understanding the industry and where things are shifting. So knowing these are the big trends, this is what's coming up, this is what you need to start getting ahead of, this is what you need to start thinking about, that helps us also make sure that we push ourselves, and we don't only have an internal out focus, but we have an external in focus, which helps keep us on our toes and shows us what's out there. And that is an always on process. You've never reached the summit there. I think this is something that you just have to continue to do and fine tune as you go.
And do you collaborate with other brands as well in some initiatives? I'm thinking here of the trophy tour. If I'm not wrong, that's transported in a Louis Vuitton box. Is that correct?
That's
but
correct.
I don't know, maybe you do things with Adidas in terms of partnerships. But even if it's not really linked to, sponsors of an event like the World Cup or the Olympic Games, are there collabs between brands? Is that something that happens in that space?
100%. Obviously, if you're working within, let's take FIFA or the IOC, you work within the sponsor family, right? So your point around, we work very closely with Adidas on multiple things when we're talking about Trophy Tour or FIFA. When we're thinking outside of a sponsor family and we're looking at other collaborations that we do, that is something that we absolutely look at, because one, the two brands coming together gives a lot of opportunity. It brings some challenges too. So you have to make sure that you're aligned on values and what you're trying to achieve there. And then through that, starting to hopefully deliver, a 1 + 1 = 3 compelling proposition when you start bringing these other brands into the mix too. And sometimes it works, right, and sometimes it doesn't. But I think that being open to thinking about those partnerships is critical, because you can take it so far. Another brand coming in as a partner can actually maybe get you over the edge or take you to a new level or bring you to a different space that you just didn't think that you could get to. And then ultimately, as I mentioned, when you think about athletes today, sportsmen and sportswomen, many of them are becoming their own brands in their own right. And it goes well beyond just signing a talent and asking them to do some reach campaigns for you. Many of them have really sustainable brand companies that they work with too. And so you've got to think further than just what often meets the eye initially.
Right. And thinking of Coke as a brand, then what do you think sets Coke apart from other brands whenever you partner with events or personalities?
Look, I think herein the answer should lie with how our consumers see us and how our rights holders see us. Self-awareness is obviously important, but I don't want to sit here and put a pat on my back or on the team's back and say, we set apart because this, and this. I think we get a lot of things right, but we don't always get it right. And hopefully we learn from those things that we don't. But a couple of things we do try to put in place to make sure that we, at least competitive in the space or best in class where we can be. We have a lot of discipline around this, right? So, when we finish a big global event, we run a very, very thorough after-action review. We believe that the after-action review gives us the input into what worked, what didn't work, how do we learn from it and take it forward. Even the folks that are in the after-action review, it's not just a small percentage. We have our team that coordinate it, but you have the previous host country, you have the future host country, and you're able to share these learnings and collaboration in such a way that I think gives you a little bit of a competitive advantage. So as we move from big global event to big global event, that is a process and a discipline that we've put in place, and we make sure that we're doing. I think understanding what the rights holders are thinking, understanding what their feedback is also helpful, because you can't be arrogant in this space. You have to continue to keep an open mind and learn. And I think there's a lot of good, valuable learnings that you can take to continue to improve what you do. The other area I would say now is this collision of passion points that start to happen. And so if you're playing in multiple passion points like we are, you run the risk of obviously trying to do too much and boiling the ocean. But at the same time, you can start to build synergy in ways that is just phenomenal. And we've seen that. We've seen how we can start to build synergy in ways that start to really elevate the brand and achieve the objectives quicker. So I would say those are the things that we like to do. Again, right. I don't know if it sets us apart, but certainly internally it helps us build and continue to learn and continue to grow as we go forward.
And Brad, you mentioned so many new areas, right? The Coke and some other brands are entering as well, different types of partnerships with personalities, influencers, the kind of things that they wouldn't do then. So I imagine that the more initiatives that you do, that you enter, does it make it even harder for you then to measure the return that you get from it? How do you navigate that? Obviously, in a bird's eye view, yeah. How do you navigate that high level?
Measurement is such an interesting topic, and I think we could have another whole session on measurement in the space. But I think, honestly, again, it goes back to the business objectives, right? And I think sometimes we do ourselves a disservice as an industry where we try to set up objectives or KPIs that are not aligned to the businesses. And very often we're trying to talk to ourselves in that regard. And we're trying to measure metrics or measure things that are not really turning the needle for the business. And so I think a starting point has got to be, what are you doing and why are you doing this and what objectives are you trying to achieve for the business?
Right.
And how can sports and entertainment drive the business? So once you've set that up, I think you have a starting point. And it's, again, different by brand. Depending on the brand life stage, depending on the objectives of the brand, there's a multitude of things that you need to look at. So I think that's the first thing that you need to take into account. And then you develop the right, measurement and metric system that works for you. We work with a multitude of third parties and suppliers that are great in the space, that give us such valuable intel, whether it's about the early valuation of the potential of a sponsorship or partnership, or it's about the post evaluation of how it performed and what it did, and everything in between. I think so. There's so many areas that you need to look at, and again, it depends where you are in your process. If you evaluating buying a new sponsorship or partnership, those metrics are going to be different to, how does that drive XYZ for the brand, or how did it drive it at the end? And you have different partners that can do that pretty well. So I think measurement is a very exciting area to talk about. My biggest takeout on this, though, is that I don't think we do ourselves any favors by only being industry focused. We need to make sure, and while that happens comparing apples to apples, we need to make sure that we're driving the business with these sponsorships, assets, or events, and really tangibly measuring that against business KPIs versus against vanity metrics, if I can put it to you that way.
Right. And Brad, so we mentioned a few activations by Coke, the Trophy Tour, the one that you mentioned, my Coke Festival, really good one. I don't really want to put you on the spot here, but I'm going to ask you about maybe, are there other brands that you see that are doing very cool things as well? I'm actually going just to mention one that is very recent, the one by Budweiser, for instance, that they couldn't deliver the beers in Qatar. So on the spot, they created this thing. Okay, I'm going to send all those beers to the champions. They sent that to Argentina. And I think just 1 or 2 days ago, they announced, okay, we're going to do the same now with the Women's World Cup as well. So I think that was a nice one. I don't know, brands like Heineken as well are known for doing good stuff around the Champions League. But to have 1 or 2 that might, got your attention.
Yeah, I think those are great examples, Joe. I think, but full kudos to the team at ABA, NBA, and Budweiser. They turned a pretty challenging situation in Qatar into something fantastic, right? I think this campaign is now a platform for them to use going forward. I mean, amazing work by the team there. The Bud team did a great job, and I really applaud them for that, because now they've got something that they're going to be able to do. And they turned, lemons into lemonade for sure. So full kudos to them on that. Agree, Heineken is a master in the space. When you think about the work they do in Champions League, I just always look forward to it. But they're always so consistent and they're so salient and build the saliency of the brand. And I think that's, when I look at what good partnerships or sponsorships are, I try to look beyond just the cool factor in the moment. And I try to look at, how is this going to drive the business going forward? Again, coming back to this notion of what is this doing for the business? And I think that for me is the things that stand the test of time. So when you look at a Nike Air Jordan kind of partnership, that has been a brilliant business driver. And at the time when the deal was done, it was the first of its kind. I think that set the benchmark on what good sponsorship could be evolving it into a partnership, bringing in someone who's got skin in the game. And I think what Michael Jordan and the Nike brand have done has been amazing. So I think that is a very good example of that. I'm going to watch with interest what happens now with the deal that almost the MLS, Adidas, and Apple TV constructed with Messi and bringing Messi to Miami. I think it's super cool how they did that, and I think it takes the traditional sponsorship approach and puts it into a whole nother level where three parties came together with a shared interest to see how they build something amazing. And so, this is going to be great to see the outcome on this. I think it's great for MLS. I think it's great for US soccer to see how this is all playing out. So those are two examples that I would give because I think it goes beyond just an immediate cool factor and truly looks to drive long-term business growth in a sustainable way, which I think is important.
Yeah, no, very good examples. Listen, I do have a few more questions. I think we have another 10 minutes, to hit the hour. I don't want to take you too much longer than what we agreed. But so let me actually go to a question from Anuj Kale. I think she's in India. Can you tell us how can people who graduated recently with internship experience enter the mainstream industry? Because she says, because I've given more than 100 interviews and still no success. I know it's very broad. There isn't much details there, but to someone entering the industry, what type of advice? I'm sure that you get people asking you for advice all the time. What are one or two takeaways that you give?
Anush, nice to meet you, and thanks for the question. I got to say, persistence is important. We don't always find the perfect job straight away. What I always try and think about is whatever you're doing now, don't just think about it as the next job, but think about it setting you up for the next job, right? So it's to have a game plan in place. And I think I hear you, because very often you're like, I need someone with experience, but how do I get experience if you're not going to give me the chance to get experience? And that often comes up. But I think you have to be persistent. I think that you have to be willing to look and work with folks and with partners and with companies that you may not have had on your A list, right? That's just part of it. Sometimes you'll have a list of companies or sports organizations that you think this is the perfect, but you may need to earn your stripes in some shape or form. And so just like a football player, very rarely do you go straight to FC Barcelona or Manchester United. Often you've got to build your own career. You play for a local club, you get spotted, and so it goes. And so using that analogy, I would say, don't only go after the shiny object. Don't only go after, the big, companies or brands or organizations in the space. Sometimes starting at a regional level with a local sports organization or team will teach you so much more than you could possibly learn even at big companies. And that will help get you in the door and start building that experience. And so for me, I think the biggest thing is, while you have to be choiceful, as it's your career and your future, sometimes we set ourselves unrealistic expectations on where we want to be versus what we want to do. And if you follow on what you want to do, and this is a passion that you want to follow, then sometimes, start in an organization that's a little bit more grassroots or community driven, or a local club or team will give you that experience to be able to actually get into this. So I know that's not the silver bullet answer maybe you were hoping for, but hopefully it's a bit of perspective in terms of how you think about it.
Yeah, no, I think it's an excellent one. Focus, I think, on the role. And as you said, right, if you dream to work for Coke, for instance, maybe a way there is to starting to work in an agency that's maybe doing some work with Coke and look with a broader perspective. And the other thing is, I don't know if you did already 100 interviews. Actually, if you did 100 interviews, then in one way it's really good, because it's really hard to get to that many interviews to pass, the selection process. So it seems that you're doing your CV well, and a large part of the process very well. And then it's something with your interview that is not working well. So you probably need to work on that, maybe find a coach to help with that. If you meant that you're actually applying for 100 jobs and then you're not getting anything, then I would tell you also to tailor who your applications, right? So you won't send the same application that you sent to Coke, to FIFA, or to others. Really try to think with the mindset of the recruiter. Why would they hire you? Not why you want to work there, why you would enjoy to work there, but why would they want to hire you? I think that's the message that you need to let come across. What else? There's a quick message here from Pav as well. So this one I can read. It says, I really enjoyed the Coca-Cola animated commercials from 2001, 2004, when ITV had the Premier League highlights in the UK. Sometimes a commercial can be so good that stays with you. So nice memories from more than 20 years ago for Pav. Thanks, Pav, for the comment. Now, as we approach the end, Brad, I wanted to ask you, in many World Cups and Olympic Games and all that, so then you must have some stories or an experience that you lived during those events that you only lived thanks to your job, to your work in sport. Is there any favorite one that you like to share? A great, what's the best story that you tell about? Ooh, you can't believe that happened to me while you were working in sport.
I'll give two very quick examples, Ja. I think the one, we ran a program in South Africa called Coca-Cola. It was a grassroots football program that we ran, where we tried to bring, players from all over the country together, give them an opportunity to put them on the main stage. And one of those moments that I'll never forget, we selected an under-16 team from South Africa that then went over to Germany to play against some of the German clubs. And I'll never forget getting to the airport and as we were about to take off, and two or three of these youngsters came up to me and they said we have never even left our town, let alone getting on a plane to fly to Germany to now go and play against some of the best clubs in the world. And that stuck out for me so much. And seeing these players have the opportunity to put themselves up against some of the best clubs like a Bayern Munich, who we played against, was incredible. So I think that one will always stick with me, just on a personal level, so much. Another amazing interaction I had was on the FIFA World Cup trophy tour. We visited Bhutan. So it was incredible to visit the Kingdom of Bhutan. And we met the King of Bhutan. And he was so incredible, super humble, just such a great person. And it reminded me again about what leadership is. Sometimes we see bad leadership in action, but rarely we see good leadership in action. And that day for me just resonated so much about what good leadership's about. And so those are two very personal examples. They just resonated on a different level for me. It's away from the glitz and the glamour, but more about, taking that out of it.
That's super nice. Actually, that also tells about a lot about you. I mean, the personality that you are, the important moments, what is important to you. And what about favorite sporting moments? Do you have one favorite one?
I do. It's actually a very easy one for me. Again, I'll go back to 1995 Rugby World Cup in South Africa. Seeing what that did for our country, how it united us. For those that haven't watched Invictus, please do.
Yeah,
it will give you a great film. And then the fact that we hadn't played international rugby for years, and came back on debut and won the World Cup on home soil. That was a moment that, for all of us, just was so amazing. Again, because it brought so much unity to the country, and I think that was again the why sport and the power of what sport can do. So that for me by far is my favorite sporting moment, and one of my earliest ones too.
That's great, Brad. And listen, normally to end, I almost always, sometimes I forget or skip, but almost always I ask my guests to recommend a book or a podcast or a YouTube channel to our audience. Do you have any one that you would like to recommend?
This might sound like a paradox based on my previous answer, but there's a book that was written by James Kerr called Legacy. And what that was he went in and spent time with the New Zealand All Blacks, arguably the best sports team ever when you look at their win ratio. And what he did is he went in and he spent quality time with the All Blacks, trying to understand not what made them good, but what made them great. And this book called Legacy gives you so many learnings about life in general that you can apply. And so it's a book that I use a lot. I think there's so many leadership lessons in there. And it shows you how teams have to be intent, how they have to think about it if you want to go from good to great. And it gives you a little bit of a blueprint. So I use that in my daily life. I use it with my team. And I think Legacy is a fantastic book about the All Blacks, which are the Springboks' biggest rivals. So, but well worth it.
No, very good, very good. Listen, actually, we just had another question that arrived from Federico Lopez. Actually, he sent two messages. One a while back saying that Brad, my friend from Mexico, Alex Ferrer, say hi to you. Right, I imagine that you know him. And he's also asking for you, which soccer team worldwide has the best marketing strategy?
That's a great question, Fed. You know, when I look at the marketing strategies of football clubs and football teams, I don't only look at what their reach numbers are and what they're doing in that regard. And I really try and understand what they're doing at an academy level and what they're doing at a grassroots level too. The best that I've personally come across is probably Real Madrid in terms of what they do at the academy level, how they build their brand outside of Spain, not just through the first team, but through the community outreach they do and how they do that. And so I think a good marketing strategy for a football club has got to be holistic. It's not just about the best players in the world and slapping their faces on things. That's part of it. But it's about the values of the club and the intent and how it all comes together. And I think Real Madrid have done a very nice job in that. Another one that I think is very good is I think Liverpool. I think Liverpool also, you know, with their fan base, with their, you know, the traditions of the club. And I'm not a supporter of either of these clubs, by the way. They're not my club. So I'm not saying this because that's my club. But I'm just saying it because I think when you look at it through the business lens and marketing lens, I think they're getting it right.
Right. Yeah, while you were talking, I also thought of probably the other ends of the spectrum. Obviously, this Ryan Reynolds team is Wrexham, right? Wrexham. It's an interesting case. Angel City in the US is also super interesting. How, you know, there's some very unlikely, teams that you wouldn't expect for different reasons, also making some very, very interesting marketing. But thanks, Federico Lopez, for the question. Because I think we have to go. Brad, I can't thank you enough for your time, you know, for sharing the knowledge and your experience with us. It was really great. Now the questions here came back, and you had a lot of people saying hi to you and thanking you for the participation. I mentioned already some already. But yeah, thank you so much, and I hope that at some point we'll get to meet in person. This is super nice. It allows us to connect somehow. But who knows? Maybe we'll meet in person. I'll probably be in the US for, I think, Soccer X towards the end of the year. Don't know if you plan to be there, or maybe you come to iWorkinSport next year. Who knows?
Absolutely. And I'm in Switzerland often with both the IOC, UEFA, and FIFA there. So
let's grab a coffee then.
Yeah. Obrigado, ciao, and to everybody. Great speaking to you all, and hope this was somewhat valuable for all of you today.
That was great. There's some people here saying thank you, Jeannie Chan, very interesting. Rihan as well. Thanks everybody. Okay, Brett, just stay there 1 second while I close the stream. Bye bye everyone. See you soon.